Good day, everyone. My name is Tyson Villeneuve. Welcome to Try Stuff episode 10. I'm here with my brother Kelsey and my cousin Justin, and today we are going to be talking about learning and the tools and the situation we're in and what we want to do to move forward with that. So, as you know, we are working on a indie strategy game for PC. So these guys have been working on programming and stuff like that. So maybe let's just start with just a little bit of a history of kind of where you are in terms of your knowledge level of programming and what kind of things you've got going on that. So Kel, do you want to start?
So I actually have a minor in computer science from when I went to university. When I was doing my math degree, I actually enjoyed it back then, so I figure I'd do a minor in it, and enjoyed it. And then I guess I kind of fell out of it for a few years, and then when you started working on the game or whatever, I guess it was a few years, and then
I convinced him because this has probably been said by a lot of people, but it's definitely a bigger project than I originally planned or thought it was going to be. So I kind of approached these guys and said, "Hey, do you guys want to?" Now we've talked about this a little bit before, but and so they were willing to give it a shot and see if they are still into the programming scene.
Yeah, and I actually, like, back in the day, I did enjoy it quite a bit.
So what languages did you work with originally?
For the first, I guess, two or half my university, like part of my minor, it was C++. And then after halfway through, they switched to Java.
Okay.
So I guess
because we're using Unity and C#, which means this is a completely new language to you.
So I've never actually had any dealings with C# before. So
okay. And Justin, what about you?
Well, I actually would have the equivalent to a minor from university. They didn't give you minors at the U of S.
Okay.
But I had enough classes that it would have. It's basically the equivalent to that. I ended up with a degree in finance, and so then I went to the credit union, and that wasn't my cup of tea. And then I moved more into the IT, and now I'm in a development role, more web development and did some database stuff there. So I've been doing that for the last couple of years, and that's been with C# mostly.
So you have touched C# a little bit.
Yeah.
But you don't have a lot of experience on like larger projects or the architecture side of things.
No, none of that stuff. So
Okay.
that stuff is all very new with the game.
Okay, so let's go back. We'll start with you on the way back. So what are your because we've been working on the game together, so they've been contributing as much as they can. What are your biggest challenges right now? So like when you're given a task and when you're looking at this, what are the things that you see as kind of like something that you need to get better at?
Well, the first thing is I know C#, but I don't know Unity that well yet.
Sure.
So because Unity adds a lot of different things, and how it works. So it's just basically getting in
the architecture and the design pattern behind it, and the APIs and stuff like that, for sure.
Yeah. So I guess there's learning that, and that's just basically getting in there, getting dirty, doing some stuff, and then realizing that it's ugly, and then I have to redo it, which is pretty much goes hand in hand with programming. So,
yeah, for sure. And Kel.
Well, I guess sort of same sort of thing. Like I've seen Unity, but I've never used it before. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of learning Unity, but I'm also kind of learning the C# side as well.
Okay, sure.
So I guess it's both directions that I kind of
Sure.
go into. But
for on my side, I mean, I've been programming for quite a few years, and I wouldn't say that I'm like the know-it-all. I've got it figured out. My biggest problems are kind of like really like high level architecture decisions, and so I've been working through those kind of things, and actually we've been kind of going through class diagrams and all that kind of stuff, and trying to get you guys to understand those higher level decisions, which has actually made us change a couple of things. So, which is good. I think some of those discussions have been good. So you understand a lot of that kind of stuff. So I guess what I want to get down to now at this point is, what are the things that have been working for you, that our viewers who are maybe into games, or generally speaking, I mean, learning is just one of those things that happens all the time. What are the tools that you guys use that have been really effective for you to learn and learn rapidly?
Well, I guess for me, I've always sort of been like forever, I guess, been good at just like if I can see code, I can like really adapt it easily. Like even if I got to make slight changes.
Yeah.
So, I guess the biggest thing would be to actually like know how to like how to write it myself initially,
Right.
right?
So like examples, you can spin off of examples quite easily and stuff like that.
Yeah. So if I have an example, it's really easy.
Okay,
to,
so searching down for examples is something that kind of
yeah.
works for you good.
So and also I've always been kind of if I do it kind of once, then I can understand it quite a bit better than. So that's kind of why I take the examples and actually do it myself, right? So, I usually that's how I work is actually find examples and then actually like write it out myself, and then that way I get to actually do it and know what's going on a little bit, right? So.
Yeah, because there's definitely a difference between reading how to do it and then actually doing it
Right, and
yourself.
understanding it. Yeah, sure. What about you? What kind of things do you find work for you?
Well, one of the biggest things that I've noticed is patience, because usually when I get into something and I'm like, well, I can't do this right now. Why am I not getting it? And I don't understand it. It's just changing my mindset to understand that, you know what, this is part of the process. And because usually I've looked back at things that I've done before and they're very easy. So it's just being aware that, you know what, this might take a little bit more time than I want, and being okay with that, and
Right.
just kind of powering through it.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great point, especially when you consider, I think part of that is kind of estimating too, right? So you sit down and you're like, I want to do this, and you expect it to take an hour or 2 hours, and then you kind of hit a wall, and then so now you start bleeding over time, and that's where I think some of the frustration comes in. Versus if you incorporate that learning and that understanding that this needs to be there as part of that task, then I think that subtle mind, that perspective change, really helps.
I also think too, and that's something that I kind of battle with because I like to figure it out and do it myself, right? But there's kind of a point, and you got to kind of find the line where it's like, there's a point where you're just bashing your head against the wall repeatedly, and
Yeah.
then just to go and ask someone like, okay, how the hell do you do this? Like I've been doing this forever, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you sort of figure it out that way. Like, I guess it's one of those things, right?
I think that's a good point though to make is, and there is a fine line there, but your initial point, and I think that's a good habit, is trying to figure it out on your own, because I know a lot of programmers, programming is sitting down and bashing your head against the wall until you get it, and then you learn it because then you understand every aspect of it. But you are right that there is a certain point where let's reach out and get some resources, and but I think that until you hit that wall, that you're not going to understand the solution anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've known, cause there's quite a few times where I've struggled and I get through it and then I solve the problem, and then a little bit later I do the next project and I'm like, man, that last one that I did was garbage. I need to go back and redo it, because
Yeah.
there's so many different ways, better ways to do it, and that's experience. So
For sure, and I think you did hit on another point, is actually going back and reflecting on what you've done, and even if you don't change it, understanding what you could have done different. And I think that kind of reflection and that kind of self-awareness is important as well.
And even like if you're plowing through and you do solve it or whatever, like even going back and seeing examples of, like you're saying, that this is a better way to do it and stuff like that. Like at least you kind of know what's happening a little bit, and then you can maybe apply that new solution that's a little better or whatever.
yeah, and that's a good point, because I've gone through and I've read things and they're like, well, this is the best way to do it, but I don't understand it until you go in and you do it wrong, and then you're like, I understand what they're talking about, and that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk mediums. What type of resources do you look for? So do you hit up Google, look for articles? Do you use YouTube? Do you find personal questions to somebody who you know? Do you what other avenues are there? Podcasts. There's there's quite a few things. What do you rely on a lot?
I guess all of the above.
Yeah,
really,
that's a good answer.
like I've watched a bunch of like tutorials on YouTube, and I guess probably like general like technical documents on like what a coding should do is probably the least, I guess.
Okay, sure.
Like I actually like a code example of what it is, right? An explanation. I mean, I get some out of it, I guess, but like you're really, when you actually see it in action, that's when I really get some value out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I guess learning the I guess the general principles is some of the podcasts.
Okay,
Because I know we've listened to Coding Blocks, and so like
Yep.
the last one I listened to was naming conventions and things like that. So that is very good for general programming practices. And as far as getting down to the nitty gritty, I usually watch some YouTube videos or a lot of articles, and I guess Stack Overflow is where you get a lot of
Yep.
problems solved. So that sort of stuff gets me kind of through it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a trick because I've kind of hit a little bit of a wall for me is in that like the higher level design problems are there's no quick answer for them. They are high level philosophies, right? And so when you're looking at design patterns and all that kind of stuff, it is definitely harder to try and find things. So I like actually trying to find people that know what they're talking about. So I find myself on forums or chat rooms and where you can actually have a back and forth with people and to try and kind of feel around. Because, I mean, I've read countless articles on design patterns, and I understand generally what they're trying to achieve, but there's a difference between that practice and when you get into the theoretical or in the practical mud where, where can you cheat and where can you what's practical in this situation, and those are hard to find. So I've recently been using chat rooms, especially there's a Unity chat room that's been really good, and there's a lot of guys on there that really know what they're talking about. So for me, that's been great. I really wish that I had somebody that I knew personally who was just an expert programmer, but it's just not in the cards right now for me. So hopefully, I'd love to make some connections out there eventually. Go to some conventions and sit down with somebody and who's put 3 or 4 games or more under their belt and just like pick their brain for a couple hours. So we'll see if we can make that happen one day. But until then, chat rooms and forums are a pretty decent alternative.
Yeah, no, and for me, like that point that you made, it's kind of having a mentor. For me, Tyson actually is pretty much my mentor. So that's he's a pretty good programmer, especially compared to me. So that's a pretty good go-to. So if I'm bashing my head, like Kelsey said here earlier, I can kind of lean on him.
Well,
a bit.
and we do actually do a decent amount of that, and I enjoy that. And it's crazy to think about that. Like I've been programming for quite a while, and I do have a pretty strong foundation for that. But bouncing ideas off of you guys and whether the syntax of the language and the best practice on it. I mean, programming is a lot about logic, and you guys are enough about programming and about these kind of things where we can suss out kind of, wow, we should probably try this, and having somebody to bounce ideas off of, and even if I'm doing 80% of the talking, even just talking about it, it is a good way. So, I mean, if you're out there and you're by yourself, find somebody who will listen to you. I swear, just saying the words out loud often are enough to solve problems. So that's a good thing. But yeah, like I said, even we do a lot of like pair programming and working together and screen sharing and all that kind of stuff. Because they're both live further away from me. So you're like 4 hours away and you're half an hour away. So we don't get together all the time, but we screen share and meet like every other day almost to work on this stuff. So that stuff has been huge for me because just bouncing ideas off you guys and getting some feedback and saying things out loud is enough often to clear things up. So
yeah, and I guess I was going to say that as well. Like even if you're talking with someone that doesn't know how to solve the problem, like sometimes you get another point of view that'll help you out, right? So
yeah. Should we just wrap her up there? Do you have anything else on that topic? I think what we'll end up doing is revisiting this topic because one thing that we've been I don't want to say struggling with, but I guess I mean struggling with is I guess the best way to put it is motivation, productivity, organization, time management, learning, all these kind of things kind of are under the umbrella of getting the game done. And we've come to the realization earlier this year that really this game development and all these things and realizing even things like social media and getting out there, it's a bigger job, it's a bigger task than we thought. It's not something that happens overnight, and so we're kind of grappling with all of these things, trying to optimize our life and try and get better as professionals and get to a level where we can be faster at these things, faster at game development, and produce better results. And so we've been really consciously researching and implementing changes in our life. And so I think that would be a decent thing to share with people who might be going through something similar. And if you're watching this and you've got ideas about what we've been talking about, definitely share that with us, because we're definitely looking for those kind of things. So I think that we could probably turn this into kind of a series of things where you explore a lot of these issues and get some new ideas and even just reflect on what we're doing and share our experience. So stay tuned for that kind of thing. I think we'll probably do more of that in the future.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for joining us, and we will see you soon.